Let's talk about some very unfortunate injuries that have happened here recently with the Kansas City Chiefs and how those injuries may have actually saved a certain running back from being cut from the team and much freaking more. But first, how about those? What's up, guys? My name is Cole, aka Captain Redbeard, Scourge of the Red Sea, or sometimes known as the Red-Bearded Operating System of Chiefs Kingdom Knowledge, and I do daily news about the Kansas City Chiefs, so definitely make sure to sub if you're new and hit that like button if you are ready for Thursday Night Football against the Cheese Brains. And let's get into this video starting with some very interesting news and updates regarding injuries and roster moves that happened today, because there's quite a bit to talk about here. So let's start out with tight end Blake Bell, who got injured during the Bears preseason game, the injury being ruled a hip flexor. Well, Coach Reed confirmed today that Bell had surgery on that hip flexor injury, so it was a bigger deal than it was made to seem from the start, and his return timeline is not going to be quick. Andy said he isn't sure if Blake Bell will be on IR or what exactly will happen just yet. They are throwing around ideas for right now. A few options that could play out for Bell are: 1, keep him on the initial 53-man roster, then place him on IR and maybe designate him to return later, 8 for season, maybe. 2, keep him on the 53 until healed. 3, place him on IR before 53 and end his 2022 season with Kansas City, just like they did to running back Derek Gore today. That's right, running back Derek Gore was placed on IR today due to a fractured thumb that happened in a very competitive thumb wrestling match, or more likely, it was an injury sustained in the game against the Commanders, and because of that, the Chiefs placed him on IR, rendering him out for the entire season. In theory, Charles Goldman says there is a way around that with Gore. If they could come to an injury settlement with him, they're allowed to later re-sign him to the practice squad, and this happened previously with Chiefs wide receiver Garrett Dieter during the 2019 season. For now, however, it looks like Gore won't be playing with the Chiefs this year. It's a big hit to Kansas City's running back depth, as Gore was one of the team's top pass blocking backs and a multi-phase special teamer. To be honest, though, I had Gore going to the practice squad this season, but he would indeed have been valuable depth in the case he needed to be activated, which did happen last season, I believe. Anyway, following that move with Gore, the Chiefs then placed offensive tackle Lucas Niang on the reserve PUP list, which means he may be returned to the active roster after the Chiefs have played at least 4 regular season games. And those 2 transactions of Derek Gore on IR and Lucas Niang to the reserve PUP list did indeed bring the roster down from 82 to 80. So the Chiefs are now good on overall roster numbers until next week, when they have to cut it down to 53. So to recap on what I just said, Blake Bell had hip surgery, status with him unknown, though it could possibly be IR or a couple other scenarios that I discussed earlier. Derek Gore is confirmed out for the season on IR due to a fractured thumb, unless they settle with him and later resign him to the practice squad. And Lucas Niang has been placed on the reserve PUP list and may return to the active roster after week 4. Clear as mud. Good. From here, though, I want to talk about a very interesting scenario that could play out because of the injuries of tight end Blake Bell and running back Derek Gore. Pete Sweeney seems to think the situation could mean an extra running back or offensive lineman rather than a 4th tight end, such as Jordan Franks. The 53 door may have just opened for, he says, Derek Gore or Mike Caliendo. Now, obviously, he made that tweet prior to Derek Gore being placed on IR, so the question is now, is the door open for Ronald Jones because of an injury to a tight end and the man who is potentially fighting for reps ahead of him on the depth chart? The thought is, if Blake Bell will return, they may not go seek another tight end, instead just absorbing Bell's skill set with a mix between Jody Fortson, Noah Gray, and even a little of fullback Mike Burton, and instead keep 4 running backs, which currently would be CEH, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and Ronald Jones. And I think the reason why that could be a possibility that plays out is because if Derek Gore was healthy, they would have more than likely cut him and re-signed him to the practice squad with very little risk of Gore being poached and taken by another team. Gore is someone who knows the system and has shown to be effective when it matters, and therefore the team could have more than likely cut ties with Ronald Jones, keeping 3 running backs, and then Mike Burton, and then 4 tight ends, Kelsey, Fortson, Gray, and Bell. But now that both Bell and Gore are injured, an entirely new scenario could play out. Hear me out for a second. Ronald Jones would never last on the practice squad if the Chiefs cut him, then attempted to re-sign him there. Jones would instantly, more than likely, get scooped up by another team and both CEH and McKinnon have shown issues with seasonal durability. Therefore, this is crazy, y'all. But I think RoJo's chances of making this roster just went up, possibly more than we realize. Pete Sweeney tweeted out, RoJo had a good practice on Tuesday, and given the injuries to Blake Bell and Derek Gore, he has some late life in KC. And then Devin Clements of Heavy.com said the chances of Ronald Jones making the 53-man roster of the Chiefs just went up. And here's why this is so crazy to me. In Saturday's game against the Commanders, Ronald Jones literally had 0 running attempts, 0 rush attempts. He did play 9 snaps, catching 1 pass for 3 yards, and then out of nowhere was pulled from the game in the middle of a drive. And I don't think he returned at all. It was a very odd thing to watch, which further confused me as to why Ronald Jones has seemed to get little to no love here in KC and was quite possibly on his way out the door. But he now sees a little bit of life, a positive influx due to unforeseen circumstances via some very unfortunate injuries. I think RoJo sees a lot of action this Thursday against the Packers, especially if the starters play very little to no time against them. Coach Reid said about Mahomes and the starters playing, we'll see. Mahomes has been practicing, so how long and all, I haven't made up my mind on all that. He's been going and doing everything. Well, coach, because of all these injuries that have occurred so far, I say do not start this man or any other starter if you can freaking help it, as there are just too many injuries right now. Listen to this. These are injuries on top of the ones we've been talking about for like 5 minutes already in this video. You have Carlos Dunlap, who has inflammation on his Achilles. That's not good. He is getting better though, per Coach Reid. Juju Smith-Schuster still has the knee issue though. He also is getting better apparently. It looks like his knee injury happened at a practice, but Big Red seems optimistic about his progress, which indicates it may not be too serious, which is good.
I think he'll be fine, Herbie. Yeah, he's right there right now. So he's starting to really, he kind of turned the corner here the last couple of days, and he's running on it, so it's good.
Well, that's some nice news indeed, especially considering all the not nice news we've been discussing prior so far in this video, because Juju is back to running on his knee after being seen limping on it maybe 5 or 6 days ago. We'll have to keep watching that one. Pete Sweeney said Juju's knee will only become a concern on Wednesday, September 7th, if he is a no practice or limited practice participant leading up to the first regular season game against the Cardinals. So it may be a little while before we know more about Juju and his status. And now, another receiver that did not participate in practice today was MVS. That's right, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, though we currently don't have a reason as of why he didn't participate in practice just yet. We'll see if that has any bearing on his availability Thursday against his former teammates, the Packers. But again, my thought is this: do not start the starters. Keep them healthy. Blake Bell is out for a long, long time because we played this man in a preseason game that didn't matter. So, yeah, basically, there's a lot going on here in Chiefs Kingdom. A lot of injuries and a lot of ways things can play out. But what do you guys think about my scenario with Ronald Jones? Do you agree with me that he may indeed have a chance of making the 53-man roster now, especially with Blake Bell and Derek Gore out with injuries for the foreseeable future, and also because of CEH and McKinnon's high likelihood of having injuries themselves and the Chiefs needing valuable running back depth? Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below, and let's fight about it down there per usual. I'm here for it all. Little biceps and all. From here, I want to give a shout out to Jesse. This man turned 15 years old today. He's a big fan of the channel and plays defensive line on his high school football team out here in Vegas. So, hey, I'm glad you're a Chiefs fan and you don't like the Chokeland Las Vegas Faders. I appreciate that a ton. I hope you had a great birthday, you little legend. Eat some cake for me, please and thank you. Make sure to leave a super thanks or bearded comment to potentially be featured in an upcoming vid. Sub, like, blah, 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 and then check out this video here, pew, pew, from All Chiefed Up. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?